Hello and welcome to another edition of the Hitting the Hardwood podcast, your home for all the latest Minnesota Lynx and WNBA news, analysis, and coverage. Thank you for tuning into another episode this week. I'm your host, Mitchell Hansen, and this week I'm really excited to be joined by Tiffany Mitchell, who's a veteran guard for the Minnesota Lynx, who signed with the Lynx this offseason after 7 years in Indiana. She was drafted in 2016 by Indiana and spent the first 7 years of her career with the Fever. This offseason, she decided to test free agency and kind of start a new chapter, she said, in her career. And she ended up signing with the Minnesota Lynx, where she has, taken on a nice role and carved out a nice spot in this Lynx starting lineup, Lynx rotation in general. She's actually, been one of the top producers for the team. At the time of the recording this podcast, averaging the third most points for the team. So, she's filling in nicely, and I think that's something that Minnesota hoped she would do, and she is filling that veteran presence, and it's, following up on the court. So, good to see from Tiffany Mitchell, and I'm really excited to be joined by her this week to kind of chat with her. I sat down with her to talk a little bit about joining the Lynx, what all went into that decision this offseason to sign with Minnesota, what kind of key aspects she thought she saw from the Lynx, from a team and a franchise and organization perspective, whether it's on the court, the personnel within the team operations side or the franchise side of things, the facilities she talked about, and all of that kind of played into effect, or kind of played a role into her signing with Minnesota as a free agent. So it was really good insight from her, talking about the thought process of what is going on in a player's mind throughout that whole period, and it's not just strictly what happens on the court. So Tiffany and I kind of jump in and talk about that, and then we kind of follow it up with her taking on a new role. I talked a little bit earlier about her providing a nice spark to Minnesota and kind of filling a nice hole or kind of filling a need for Minnesota, and part of that is her playing the point guard position, which is she's never done before. She's primarily played the wing throughout the first 7 years of her career. Never played point guard before. With the Lynx, she's kind of taken over those duties, and she's really resumed that point guard role and that floor general role, which she admitted it's taken a little bit of adjusting, but she's starting to find her stride. And as every game goes along, you can tell she's starting to feel more and more comfortable in that role. So really good conversation with Tiffany. Before we jump into that, I kind of want to recap a little bit of what took place over the last week in Lynx basketball. And at the time of this recording, it's right before leading up to the Las Vegas game on Sunday afternoon. So we as we sit, entering the Las Vegas game, the Lynx have won two straight wins over Los Angeles. They've kind of, I don't want to say turn things around, but they're starting to figure things out, which is a great sign. And it's always from a Lynx side of things, that they always love when they can take down Los Angeles. So that's good to see them get a couple wins. Against the Sparks, one at home on Sylvia Falls night, which we talked about last week. On last week's podcast, and following up this past Friday with a win on the road in LA, part of that, part of the reason why Minnesota has been playing so well is the play of Nafisa Collier lately, and we all expected her to be the best player on this team. She is the best player on this team, and she's played like it recently. Entering through the first 10 games of the year, she's averaging north of 20 points. She's the only player. She leads the team only player averaging more than 20 points on the Lynx. She's leading the team in scoring, a little over 20.5 points per game. Leading the team in rebounds. She's probably top 5 in assists. Leads the team in steals. Leads the team in blocks. She's the only player with over a block a game. So she's doing a really nice job. She's leading the team in field goal percent, or second in the team in field goal percentage behind Jessica Shepard. So she's doing a really nice job with leading this team and being that primary threat and that primary scorer, which is what Cheryl Reeve and company need, and what they've wanted, and what they hope it continues moving forward with Collier. So hopefully that continues to play, or that continues to happen. And Minnesota's play continues to continue to uptick. After a slow start to the year, they've started to get some momentum rolling, and once you get that first win of the year, the wins start to follow. So it's a good sign for Minnesota. I think that's kind of what we're seeing so far. And we'll see how that continues. They're in the middle of a three-game road trip as I'm recording this podcast. So they have a bit of a tough test to round out the road trip, but it'll be a good measuring stick once again for Minnesota, and just kind of see how they can go against the top dogs and exactly where they're at in the layout of the league. We're still early, so they're still trying to figure themselves out, and every team is still trying to figure things out as we progress through the year. But we are officially a quarter of the way through the year, so that's kind of crazy to think about. We're 10 games into a 40-game season, entering the Las Vegas game, so we're getting there. Before we know it, we'll be at the halfway point, and it feels like we just started, but we're a little over a month into the season now, so. Every team they got to get things going. So if they want to make the playoffs, they got to right the ship here quick, and they got to get things figured out to not fall too far behind in the pack. So Minnesota has a ways to go, but we've seen it before. They put strong second halves in middle of the seasons together. So we'll see what happens here in the next handful of games and kind of moving forward. With that said. I really appreciate you tuning in. Another avenue for you to tune in to any Lynx coverage. I just want to point out before we jump into the Tiffany Mitchell conversation is you can join myself and Jack Borman from Canis Hoopus on Playback. Playback is where you can watch games or rewatch games live with myself, with Jack, with other fans. We'll stream games. And you can listen to Jack and I talk about what's happening in the game, answer your questions. You can ask questions. We'll answer them live while we're watching games, or just come hang out, come listen, come watch the game. You can, if you want to mute us, you can mute us and come watch the game and just watch the game and not hear us. But or if you want to just hear us and not watch the game, you can do that too. But you can join that. It's called Lynx Live, and we'll do it periodically throughout the year. We're going to try at least 4 or 5 times a month here the rest of the year. It'll be primarily away games, and it'll be some home games, but it'll be rewatch games where we'll watch them maybe a night or two after the game. So because we realize that a lot of you listeners, you're Lynx fans, and you're going to be at those home games. So we want you to join in as much as you can and to kind of hear your feedback, hear your reactions from what took place in the game, ask your questions if you have questions. Hear commentary from Jack and I, but we're excited to be kicking that off, and you can find on Hitting the Hardwood's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, anywhere you find Hitting the Hardwood on social media, you can find the link to Lynx Live. Otherwise, I'll list it here. It's Playback .tv, so it's playback.tv/Lynx Live, and it's all one word, Lynx Live, lowercase. So you can check us out there, and it's free to join. There's no cost. You can join for 10 minutes if you want to join for 10 minutes. If you want to join for the whole game, you certainly can. If you want to join for the second half, that's fine too. But feel free to check us out on Playback, and we will hopefully see you on there and interact with you as we watch some Lynx away games or rewatch some Lynx home games or kind of a little bit of everything else. So see you on Playback, and without further ado, let's jump into the conversation with Tiffany Mitchell that I mentioned earlier. You can also read a story I wrote on Tiffany Mitchell, which kind of contains a lot of the stuff from this conversation at canishoopus.com. It kind of gives an outlook or kind of a deep dive into Tiffany Mitchell's offseason, in her kind of experiencing a year of firsts here with Minnesota, as I mentioned earlier, her being with a new team in Minnesota, and also taking on the point guard position for the first time. So without further ado, let's jump into the conversation with Tiffany. Tiffany Mitchell, thank you for joining me. How are you doing today?
Pretty good. Just finished up practice. So yeah, ready to hit the road.
Good. How's obviously this week, you guys have a little bit of time off to practice actually for the first time in a while to get a few days together. How's everything been going and just kind of, I guess, resting up and preparing for the road trip ahead?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first part of our season was pretty brutal. We're playing every other day, and on the road for, 7, 10 days at a time. So it's good to finally like be in one place for a little bit, and get more practices under our belt and get more comfortable with each other.
Hmm. What's that like, especially being in a new space and being in Minnesota for obviously the first season this year, first time this year? What's it like to kind of just get things going right away, and have that maybe every other day schedule, like you were saying, and trying to learn on the fly?
Yeah, I mean it's a gift and a curse, because you're kind of learning on the fly, and we'd rather learn through wins than the losses that came early on. But at the same time, it's good because we just get to play, and you can still get that experience, and you don't have time to kind of sit and wallow about a loss. You have to turn the page really quick, and get ready for the next one.
Hmm. Kind of talking about the recent the recent weekend that the Lynx had of the celebratory weekend at home. What was that weekend like for you to not only see the fans that came out, obviously all the players come back, but what was it like for you to take part in that whole weekend?
Yeah, I mean, just seeing all the historic players and all the people that came before me and the other players on this team, and being a part of Link's history, is really important. And they not laid the foundation for us, so it was just really cool to be around such amazing people, such great players, and people watching still Jersey get retired, and just seeing Maya Moore again, everything like that. It was just a really cool experience for me, being that this is my first year and just knowing the history behind being the Lynx franchise.
Mm-hmm. Kind of talking about your first year, that leads into my next question. Your first year in Minnesota, what has it been like, in your time here so far?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just taking it day by day, figuring it out along the way. I have really good teammates, and people around me that kind of, made my first year here, at least making it, not as difficult. The learning curve, just knowing what they want from me and just trying to execute that the best of my ability.
Kind of jumping back to the off season, at being a free agent, what was that process like for you? And I guess if without maybe you don't have to share, you can dictate how much information you share, I guess here. But what was your conversation like with Minnesota before ultimately deciding to come to the Lynx?
I think at this part of my career, was going into my 8th season, and have only been in one place for my entire career. So I was in Indy since I was 21 years old. I'm now 28. So Indy's literally seen me grow up, and evolve into the person and player that I am today. So I'll be forever thankful for them drafting me back in 2016. But I knew at that point, following the year that I had my last year in Indy, I needed something different. I need to feel something different, experience something different. I didn't know, what this season will hold, no matter which team I went to. But I knew that I needed a change in my life for me mentally, also probably physically as well. Everything, you just outgrow a place, and I think that's what happened with Indy. Like I said, I'm really thankful for being there for that long, because it's just really unheard of one person being there, unless you're like a franchise player or something like that. Then people usually move around. So for me to spend 7 years in one place is kind of unheard of. But I also knew it was time for me to make a change.
Mm-hmm. From somebody on the outside looking at the Lynx and looking at the weighing that option of joining Minnesota, what was that like for you? And I guess what was your view of Minnesota throughout that whole process, or maybe even before when you were in Indiana?
Yeah, I mean, I just knew Minnesota was very professional, and took care of their players the right way. Like I said, I'm not getting any younger, and I knew I needed certain things to be able to perform the way that I wanted to do, and Minnesota provides that. And I think that's like the main thing a lot of people talk about is just the facilities and how they take care of us. Being that they share with the Timberwolves, like we get everything that they get from the NBA team, and from the side of that. They make sure we're set up, and put in a position to succeed, and that was really important to me, being able to get in the gym at night if I wanted to shoot, like just having access to a chef, like cooking every day, not having to cook every day, like just having those type of things, small things, but they really make a big difference in the grand scheme of things throughout a season, because just only thing we have to worry about is playing basketball.
How much does that weigh into players' decisions? Not, I mean, you obviously said that weighed into your decisions, but as you know, the conversations you've had with other players, past or present, how much does that weigh into the decisions that you do make?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I know what's important. I know what works well for me, and I know that's kind of what's at the top of my list and what I prioritize. And feeling like I'm not having to do a whole lot outside of basketball is important to me because now the only thing I can worry about is just taking care of my body and being ready to play basketball. There's other situations and teams where they don't have access to things like this, so you have to kind of figure it out on the way. And I didn't want to do that anymore. Wasn't in the place where I'm trying to figure out, how to get into a gym at night or something like that. Like I said, I'm just too far along where, I prioritize certain things and that I want and need in my career.
Mm-hmm. When it comes to, your role on this team, I know one thing that you had talked about, in training camp and even at the beginning of the season was you had a conversation with Cheryl about being that guard position or, playing in that guard position, that lead guard spot. What were those conversations like? And was that something that, kind of intrigued you right away? Were you kind of apprehensive about that right away? What were your initial thoughts on that?
It wasn't really like a conversation that was in depth about like, hey, this is what we're gonna do when you get here. She like mentioned it, throughout some conversations. Like we had multiple conversations, and just kind of asked me, was I comfortable playing there if I was thrown in there for a little bit? And I'm like, oh yeah, I could do it here and there. So kind of seeing how it stuck, I was a little surprised. But I'm all for adapting, and I think that's why she likes it and sees the value in having me there because I'm able to adapt. I'm able to learn on the fly. I think she trusts me. She knows like it's an adjustment for me, and that's why she's kind of giving me a little grace sometimes. Other times, not so much, but I'm figuring it out along the way. I know myself, and honestly, I appreciate the challenge of kind of working through this kind of new position. Going into my eighth year, I didn't think I would have to dust off my point guard skills, but here we are. But I love it. I love the challenge, and honestly, it's just helping me, see the game honestly from a different side of the ball. Like I'm having to think a lot more, which probably I wouldn't have to if I was, still on the wing and stuff like that. Being in that lead position is get me outside of my comfort zone, and actually really appreciate it.
Cheryl kind of mentioned the other night that she kind of has to take a step back every once in a while when I think she said when she yells at you on the court, she has to take a step back and realize, okay, she's kind of playing out of position, so
Yeah.
I gotta take a step back. But she mentioned that that's not only due to the high expectations you have for yourself, but that the expectations that she has for you, and the potential she sees you in that role. How
Yeah.
has that been for you so far? How have you lived up to kind of your expectations, or how's everything been going so far?
Yeah, I mean, I'm my hardest critic, I feel like. So, I hear her, sometimes being upset, but honestly, I'm already upset before she can even get to me. So I think she knows that as well. Like I said, I just hold myself to a really high standard. And just to be like a good basketball player, regardless of what position I am, I need to be able to, being in that role, it's difficult and it's hard at times, but it's like I need to be able to, make those decisions if I'm going to be out there. So it's not, oh, woe is me, I haven't played this position anymore. I need to figure it out if I'm out there, because she's depending on that. And me having the ball in my hand most of the time, I need to, make good decisions most of the time throughout the game. So, I mean, some games are going to be better than others. Those are the kind of things we're working through. I mean, she's constantly, talking to me, though, giving me, hints and tips and stuff and things to look out while I'm out there. But just her and knowing that she trusts me, that does wonders for me and my confidence, honestly, because I've been on the other side of it where you do one thing and you might not see the court again, do one thing wrong. So those type of situations are very hard to play in, and I just appreciate that. Again, like she trusts me and has the confidence in me. Even if I do make a mistake, to come back to me because more than likely I'll try to clean that mistake up.
Mm-hmm. That's one thing with this roster that, Cheryl talked about it during the draft process, even after the draft process leading up to the year, that this roster is filled with players that can play multiple positions. They can kind of be interchangeable in different spots. Is that fun for you as a player to kind of have those teammates like that, and yourself to kind of play different roles in different spots throughout the year?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's becoming really like positionless. Like we're just in spots. We're not really having a position. We're running plays and just putting people in spots. So we're just trying to, maximize each person's skill set and just putting them in a position to show what they do well. But it's not necessarily like this person is the point guard. This person, like anybody, sometimes can bring the ball up. Like anybody can set a screen. Things like that. It's just not, delegated to only one person can do one thing. So it's really cool knowing that we have, so many different types of players on this team that can do a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm. When it comes to the team's performance, obviously it was a little bit of a slower start to the year. But you guys, Cheryl even mentioned after that first home win that you guys seem to be kind of figuring things out and kind of kind of coming through in the end when maybe you didn't at the beginning of the year. What do you sense kind of a shift in things and in kind of an improvement or constant uptick in performance, or just kind of morale or chemistry within the team?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Even, before, the home win, like we were in the last 5 games, we're in a lot of games against a lot of good teams and lost by under 5 points. So I think we had like the longest streak of losing by under five for 5 games in a row. And that's just like, it's not like we're losing games and getting blown out. It's like we are actually competing and we're in games and there's just like stretches where we just don't look good and we just can't get over that hump. So those are the things that we kind of have to work through. So I wasn't necessarily concerned about, our chemistry, our confidence, because we're right there and we know that, and we just have to figure out, when we're up, how to get further up, or, when we're down, how to, come together and be tighter, and work our way back instead of, letting them go on even larger run or something like that. So I think those are the type of things we're figuring out, not necessarily, how to play together and how to win and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. To finish things off, I just have a few random questions for you to see what your I don't know, just kind of random teammate questions.
Okay.
First one, who's the best locker room dancer? I know we've talked pregame and postgame about the pregame locker room dance. Who's the best Lynx dancer on the team?
By
Maybe it's
default,
you.
because no. By default, because she's probably the only one that does dance in the locker room is Rachel.
Okay. I know they asked Sylvia Falls before her jersey retirement if she was going to jump back in the locker room and join in, but she said that Rachel told her that she's trying to get other teammates to join in on that. So
Yeah,
that
she's trying to recruit, but we'll
yeah.
see.
Yeah. Who maybe this was the exact same answer, but the I guess the funniest or most laid back person on the team.
Um, the most laid back. Oh man, I would say I'm pretty laid back.
Okay.
But when it comes to funny, you got to give it to Diamond or Rachel again.
Really? Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
those two can give you a laugh every time.
How about the other side of things? The person that's the most serious or kind of just not joking or anything.
Hmm.
I don't want to get you in trouble here.
I'm trying to think. Honestly, we all kind of like are really jokey, just like in our own way. Only
Yeah,
person that probably is like really quiet is maybe Nina. But she's just always like that. I think that's just
okay,
her personality. Yeah.
sure. Now, when it comes to, we were just talking about the road trip. When it comes to traveling, who's the best travel partner on the team? Who always has the snacks, or who has the best stuff? Who's the best person to travel with, do you think?
Hmm. See, that's the thing. The Lynx take care of us, so it's not like we're
Mm.
taking our own snacks.
Okay.
Got we just go to the trainers and get the snacks. I mean, if we need something in the airport, we just buy it ourselves. So it's not like, we have to think about packing things ourselves, which is a plus.
That is nice. That is nice.
Yeah.
Well, cool, Tiffany. I appreciate you taking some time, and we look forward to seeing you play out the rest of the year. Welcome to Minnesota. I know you've been here a little while, but welcome to Minnesota, and it's been a joy to watch you so far, and we wish you the best of luck the rest of the year.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you once again to Tiffany Mitchell for joining the podcast this week. It was great insight from her, great conversation with her. She's a great personality. She's a fun person to cover. So I was happy to kind of sit down with her and kind of peel back and kind of get a different side of her that maybe we haven't seen before. That we haven't heard her say in the media scrums or in the media availabilities or post game, pre game, whatever it may be after practice. But just to kind of get a one-on-one with her and kind of get a conversation with her going on a little bit of the thought process of where she's at, how she got to where she is, and how things are going so far for her and the Lynx and where they hope to go moving forward. So thank you again to Tiffany for joining, and I hope to maybe get some more players and coaches and other personnel here, on sometime soon or sometime in the future as the season progresses. I also want to give a thank you to Jeremy Rushing for producing this podcast every week. He does a great job in making everything sound great and making this podcast sound good every week. So I want to thank Jeremy for all of his work in helping out in that regard. If you want to support Hitting the Hardwood in other ways, you can. I mentioned earlier before the Tiffany Mitchell interview that you can follow Hitting the Hardwood on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. We're everywhere you can find us on social media. On Twitter, it's at Hitting Hardwood, and then everywhere else, it's on Instagram, it's at Hitting the Hardwood, and on Facebook, you can find us on Hitting the Hardwood as well. You can also find me, Mitchell Hansen, on Twitter at M_Hansen, HANSEN 13. So that's M_Hansen 13. And I will have a lot of this information, podcast-wise, Hitting the Hardwood-wise, or anything in between, Lynx-related or WNBA-related on Twitter. So feel free to follow me there as well. And also, if you would like to support Hitting the Hardwood in other forms, if you are, please able to support us on Patreon. With not only this podcast, I have a website, newsletters, and the Patreon page. We try and offer everybody, our fans, everything that we can, and Patreon, the Patreon community and our patrons, they kind of get it more of exclusive offering than what everybody else does, and they get. I mentioned the newsletter. For everybody, it comes out every Wednesday, or at least comes out weekly. But during the season, for sure, every Wednesday. But our patrons get them every 3 days, or 3 days a week, I should say, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. That kind of contains anywhere from deep dive information, bonus content, exclusive Patreon content, announcement news before anybody else, early access to podcasts. There's a lot of different perks. That's just naming a few of them. But if you are able to, it's cheap to be able to subscribe and join the Patreon community. I also do want to hear your feedback. Once you sign up, I'll reach out to you and let you know how you can get a hold of me. I want to know what I can do different, what you like, what you don't like, what's working well and what's not. So please let me know. But you can check out patreon.com. If you want to try a 7-day free trial, you definitely can. And then see what it's all about, and if you do enjoy it, feel free to sign up for a monthly membership and kind of get more of that offering and in that space. But like I said, it's patreon.com/hitting the hardwood. And you can receive all of those exclusive perks and much more as part of our Patreon community. I also want to give a shout out to a couple of our partners. I mentioned Playback earlier. That we'll be doing Lynx Live shows on Playback. Kind of doing watch parties throughout the year. Jack Borman and I from Canis Hoopus will be doing that. I also want to give a shout out to Better Edge and Homage. Better Edge is a social betting site. Where you can bet against your friends, and it's very cheap to do so. You can bet anywhere from, like any other betting site. You can do anything from $1 to as much as you want. But you can do competitions, you can do pick'ems, you can do, straight up bets. You can bet against myself. You can bet against anybody else. You can just bet by yourself if you want to. But Better Edge, it's one of my favorite, if not my favorite, app to use or platform to use. And it's very user friendly. And it's one of the social, the betting sites that offer WNBA stuff too, which is very cool. So, I regularly do competitions through Better Edge. So feel free to come join and take my money if you want. I'll admit you're going to take my money if you join and bet against me. So you can find that at bettoredge.com/links. And that is BETTOR edge.com/links. If you go to that link, you can use the promo code LYNX, LYNX, and you will be able to get $20 in free play. That allows you to just kind of try things out and see if you like it. If you do like it, keep playing. But you can do that at bettoredge.com/links or check out BettorEdge at bettoredge.com. And I also want to give a shout out. I mentioned to Homage. Homage has a lot of vintage clothing gear. I'm really excited to be partnering with them this year too, and just offering our fans not only Lynx gear, WNBA gear, but a lot of other vintage gear. They have a lot of really cool stuff on their website. And I got to admit, and I'm not the only one to say this, I was just talking to somebody the other day who I work with at Windside, Rachel Galligan. She was talking about how the WNBA shirt that she had is very soft. It's the exact same material that Homage does or provides with their shirts. And it's honestly, it's some of my favorite stuff, and it's just super comfy. As I'm recording this podcast, I'm wearing my Lynx shirt, blue Lynx shirt that I got through Homage. It's extremely soft, and they're sweet. I mean, it's vintage gear if you like vintage gear, or just regular logo gear. I mean, WNBA gear, they have all the team basic logo marks. They often have discounts, and it's great. So just go check them out. That's homage.com, HOMAGE.com. And if you want to use a couple special URLs, there's one that is Lynx specific, and there's one that's WNBA specific. You can find that at Hitting the Hardwood on Twitter. And if every purchase through those links that you find on our Twitter, those the proceeds, the percentage of those proceeds come back to support Hitting the Hardwood. So we appreciate anything you can do to not only get gear, but to maybe help support Hitting the Hardwood and give back to this podcast, this brand, so that we can continue to push out content and continue the longevity of this podcast moving forward, because I don't see it to be just a year thing. I want this podcast in this everything that we're doing right now, newsletter, website, and beyond, Patreon page. I want this to continue for years to come, because I think Lynx fans deserve it. I think WNBA fans deserve it. And I'm really excited to continue to live in this space and to be able to do this for all of you. So with that said, I hope you enjoyed this podcast this week. As always, if you have any suggestions that you would like to pass along, whether it's regarding this podcast, Hitting the Hardwood, future guests, whatever it may be, feel free to shoot me a note. Shoot me an email at, you can do that. I have a Hitting the Hardwood email. It's hittingthehardwood@gmail.com. And if you want to just send me a note, say hi, whatever, you can do that. And we'll see it. The Hitting the Hardwood team will see that, and we'll take it into account with, any feedback or suggestions that you may have. So thank you all for listening. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. I hope you enjoy the upcoming week for Lynx basketball. And as always, we will see you again next week.
3, 2, 1, yeah!
Yo.